Type 055 Renhai class. Guided missile destroyers carry 112 vertical launch cells and displace over 13,000 tons at full load. 8 hulls are confirmed operational as of late 2024, with additional units under construction. Each destroyer integrates dual-band radar systems for simultaneous air defense and surface engagement across multiple threat vectors. The platform operates as a fleet command node, coordinating fire control data across task groups in contested littoral zones. The Type 055 would anchor carrier strike groups operating beyond the first island chain, providing layered air defense and anti-surface warfare capability against both manned aircraft and incoming cruise missiles. Its magazine depth allows sustained operations without resupply, a critical factor in extended blue water deployments. The destroyer's propulsion system combines gas turbines for sprint speed during surface action with efficient cruising endurance for prolonged patrol cycles. Primary limitations include dependence on satellite communication links for over-the-horizon targeting and vulnerability to coordinated submarine attacks when operating outside protective screen formations. The ship's large radar cross-section makes it a priority target for anti-ship ballistic missiles during the initial phase of high-intensity conflict. Type 052 D Luoyang 3 class destroyers form the numerical backbone of the surface combatant fleet, with more than 30 hulls commissioned since 2014. Each vessel carries 64 vertical launch cells loaded with a mix of HHQ-9 surface-to-air missiles, YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles, and CY-5 anti-submarine rockets. Displacement sits at roughly 7,500 tons, making the 052D lighter and less capable than the Type 055, but far more numerous. These destroyers escort amphibious task forces, patrol disputed maritime zones, and provide area air defense for smaller combatants lacking organic missile defense systems. The Type 052D's phased array radar operates in the S-band, offering detection ranges sufficient for early warning against subsonic cruise missiles but limited tracking fidelity against low observable threats. Magazine capacity constrains sustained air defense operations, particularly when defending against saturation attacks involving multiple axis approaches. Production tempo remains high, with new launches occurring annually at multiple shipyards. And this allows rapid fleet expansion, but introduces hull-to-hull variants in combat systems, integration, and crew proficiency. The class trades individual platform capability for distributed presence across multiple theater commands. Type 071 Yuzhou class amphibious transport docks provide strategic lift for mechanized infantry, armored vehicles, and rotary wing aviation. 8 hulls are in service, each capable of embarking a full Marine battalion with associated vehicles and 4 air cushion landing craft. The ships displace 25,000 tons and feature a well deck for amphibious assault operations and a flight deck supporting multiple Z-8 transport helicopters simultaneously. These platforms would spearhead contested amphibious landings by delivering initial assault waves under fire, using landing craft to bridge the gap between offshore assembly areas and hostile shorelines. The Type 071 lacks the aviation capacity of dedicated amphibious assault ships, limiting vertical envelopment options during the critical initial lodgement phase. Its air defense suite consists of point defense systems effective only against close-in threats, requiring escort destroyers to establish protective umbrellas during transit and landing operations. The class represents a doctrinal shift toward expeditionary warfare capability, moving beyond coastal defense toward power projection in disputed island chains. Operational employment would concentrate multiple hulls in a single amphibious ready group, rather than dispersing them across independent missions. Vulnerability to submarine interdiction increases significantly once ships enter predictable approach lanes toward landing zones. Type 075 amphibious assault ships enhance vertical assault capability with full-length flight decks supporting 30 helicopters and short takeoff fixed-wing aircraft. 3 hulls are operational as of 2024, displacing 40,000 tons with well decks for landing craft and vehicle storage capacity exceeding the Type 071. The ships carry a Marine brigade with armored fighting vehicles, artillery, and logistic support for sustained inland operations following initial beachhead seizure. These vessels enable simultaneous surface and air assault, allowing Marine forces to bypass fortified coastal defenses and establish lodgements behind enemy lines. The flight deck supports continuous helicopter operations, critical for rapid force buildup during the vulnerable early hours of an amphibious campaign. Magazine space includes vehicle decks for amphibious armored vehicles capable of self-deploying from ship to shore without landing craft intermediaries. Limitations center on air defense vulnerability and dependence on sea control. The Type 075 presents a high-value target whose loss would cripple an entire amphibious operation. Its large thermal and radar signature makes concealment impossible during approach phases. The ship requires continuous combat air patrol, overhead, and integrated air defense, from escorting destroyers to survive in contested environments. Medical facilities, onboard support, casualty treatment, but lack capacity for mass casualty scenarios common in opposed landings. J-25th generation stealth fighters provide low observable air superiority and strike capability against high-value airborne assets. Roughly 250 aircraft are estimated operational, distributed across multiple theater commands, with concentration in the eastern and southern theaters. The aircraft features internal weapons bays carrying PL-15 Beyond visual range air-to-air missiles, with reported ranges exceeding 200 kilometers. Twin WS-10C engines enable supercruise in clean configuration, sustaining supersonic speeds without afterburner to extend operational radius. The J-20 would engage opposing fighter aircraft and airborne early warning platforms before they detect supporting fourth-generation strike packages. Its low observable characteristics reduce detection ranges against conventional fire control radars, allowing first-shot opportunities in beyond visual range engagements. The platform's sensor suite includes active electronically scanned array radar with low probability of intercept modes, reducing the risk of detection through radar emissions. Operational limitations include small internal weapons capacity, restricting magazine depth during extended air-to-air engagements. External carriage of additional munitions negates stealth advantages, forcing a choice between payload and survivability. Production numbers remain significantly lower than fourth-generation fleets, limiting surge capacity during attrition scenarios. The aircraft's combat radius constrains operations beyond the first island chain without tanker support, which itself presents vulnerable targets requiring escort. J-16 multi-role strike fighters form the primary offensive aviation component, with over 350 aircraft in service as of late 2024. The platform derives from the Sukhoi Su-30 airframe, but integrates indigenous avionics, including active electronically scanned array radar and electronic warfare suites. The J-16 carries up to 12,000 kilograms of ordnance on 12 hardpoints, including YJ-91 anti-radiation missiles, LS-6 precision-guided glide bombs, and PL-15 air-to-air missiles for self-defense. These fighters would execute deep strike missions against air defense nodes, naval surface groups, and ground infrastructure using standoff weapons launched from outside effective engagement zones. The aircraft's electronic warfare capabilities allow jamming of early warning radars and communications networks, degrading coordinated defensive responses. Twin-seat configuration supports crew workload division during complex suppression of enemy air defense missions requiring simultaneous threat management and weapons employment. The platform lacks stealth characteristics, making it vulnerable to long-range surface-to-air missiles and opposing fighter patrols. Effective employment requires initial suppression of air defenses by J-20 fighters and supporting electronic attack aircraft. High sortie rates depend on forward operating bases within range of targets, which themselves become priority targets for opposing strike operations. The J-16 cannot operate effectively in uncontested airspace, requiring air superiority establishment before conducting ground attack missions. H-6K and H-6N long-range bomber variants extend strike range to targets across the Western Pacific and into the second island chain. Approximately 200 H-6K bombers operate from multiple air bases, each carrying 6 C-J-10 land attack cruise missiles with ranges exceeding 1,500 kilometers. The newer H-6N variant features a modified fuselage, allowing carriage of air-launched ballistic missiles, including reports of compatibility with DF-21 derivatives for maritime strike missions. These bombers provide standoff strike capability against fixed installations, port facilities, and airfield complexes without entering defended airspace. Launch profiles position aircraft outside surface-to-air missile engagement zones while placing targets within cruise missile reach. The H-6N's ability to carry ballistic missiles adds a hypersonic strike option against time-sensitive targets like carrier groups during transit phases. Platform survivability remains poor against modern air defenses due to subsonic speeds, large radar cross-section, and lack of maneuverability. Operations require complete air superiority or carefully planned ingress routes, exploiting radar coverage gaps. The bombers depend on aerial refueling for maximum range missions, adding logistical complexity and vulnerable tanker aircraft to the operational chain. Cruise missile magazines limit sustained strike campaigns, requiring return to base for rearming after each sortie. DF-21D anti-ship ballistic missile launchers provide long-range strike capability against surface combatants operating in the Western Pacific. Estimated launcher inventory exceeds 100 mobile transporter erector launcher vehicles, each carrying a single missile with reported range approaching 1,800 kilometers. The missile follows a ballistic trajectory during boost and mid-course phases before releasing a maneuverable re-entry vehicle guided by onboard sensors during terminal approach. The DF-21D would engage high-value surface combatants, particularly aircraft carriers, during the initial phase of maritime conflict before opposing forces establish sea control. Launch occurs from hardened bases or mobile launchers positioned throughout interior provinces, complicating preemptive strikes. The missile's speed during terminal approach reduces engagement windows for shipboard defense systems, requiring successful intercepts during mid-course or boost phases. Effectiveness depends entirely on real-time targeting data from satellites, over-the-horizon radar networks, and aerial reconnaissance platforms. Disruption of sensor networks through electronic warfare, anti-satellite operations, or physical destruction of radar sites degrades targeting accuracy to levels making successful engagement unlikely. The missile's single warhead limits its effectiveness against dispersed formations, requiring multiple launches to achieve hit probability against maneuvering targets. Inventory constraints prevent sustained campaigns, making the system more effective as a deterrent than as a reliable operational capability. DF-26 Intermediate-range ballistic missile systems extend strike range to targets throughout the Indo-Pacific theater, including Guam and Darwin. Launcher inventory approaches 200 transporter erector launcher vehicles, each carrying a single missile with conventional or nuclear warhead options. Maximum range exceeds 4,000 kilometers, placing forward-deployed air bases, logistics nodes, and naval facilities under threat. The missile incorporates maneuverable re-entry vehicle technology similar to the DF-21D for terminal phase guidance against relocatable targets. The DF-26 would strike airfield infrastructure, destroying runways, fuel storage, and maintenance facilities to degrade opposing sortie generation rates. Port facilities and ammunition depots constitute additional priority targets, disrupting logistics chains supporting deployed forces. The system's dual-capable nature complicates defensive planning, as conventional and nuclear variants follow identical flight profiles until warhead separation. Targeting limitations mirror those affecting the DF-21D, requiring persistent surveillance and rapid data transmission to engage mobile or relocatable assets. Fixed targets like air bases allow pre-planned targeting solutions, but remain vulnerable to repair and redundancy measures that restore partial capability within hours. Missile inventories limit sustained strike campaigns, forcing prioritization decisions between target sets. The weapons cannot achieve functional kills against hardened underground facilities without nuclear warheads, limiting effectiveness against protected command nodes. YJ-18 ship and submarine launched anti-ship cruise missiles equip surface combatants and submarines with supersonic terminal phase strike capability. The weapon follows a subsonic cruise profile during mid-course flight before accelerating to Mach 3 during the final approach, reducing defensive engagement windows. Range approaches 350 kilometers, allowing launch from beyond visual range while keeping launch platforms outside immediate counterfire zones. Surface ships carry the missile in vertical launch cells shared with air defense and anti-submarine weapons, creating magazine trade-offs between offensive and defensive loadouts. Submarines launch YJ-18 from standard torpedo tubes, maintaining stealth until weapon separation. The missile's supersonic terminal phase complicates interception by shipboard close in weapon systems designed for subsonic threats. Effectiveness against modern air defense systems remains contested, as network-centric engagement systems can track and engage multiple simultaneous threats. Saturation attacks using coordinated launches from multiple platforms increase penetration probability but require complex command and control. The weapon's subsonic cruise phase makes it vulnerable to fighter patrols and long-range surface-to-air missiles during mid-course flight. Targeting depends on off-board sensors for beyond-horizon engagements, creating dependencies on reconnaissance platforms and data links vulnerable to electronic warfare. Type 094 JIN-class ballistic missile submarines provide sea-based nuclear deterrence as part of the Strategic Rocket Force Triad. 6 hulls are operational, each carrying 12 JL-2 submarine-launched ballistic missiles with ranges approaching 7,500 kilometers. The submarines displace 11,000 tons submerged and operate from hardened facilities on Hainan Island. Nuclear propulsion enables unlimited submerged endurance, limited only by crew provisions and maintenance requirements. These submarines would deploy to patrol areas in the South China Sea and potentially the Philippine Sea, maintaining assured second strike capability against strategic targets. Survivability depends on remaining undetected during patrol cycles, requiring quiet operations and avoidance of opposing anti-submarine warfare forces. The JL-2 missiles range forces submarines to patrol within potential choke points, increasing detection risk. The class suffers from acoustic signature levels higher than contemporary American and Russian ballistic missile submarines, making detection more feasible through passive sonar arrays. Limited patrol areas due to missile range constraints concentrate submarine operations in predictable locations. Effectiveness as a deterrent hinges on maintaining at least one submarine on patrol at all times, requiring operational availability rates difficult to sustain with a small fleet. Command and control procedures during crises remain opaque, raising questions about authorization processes and launch timelines. Type 093 Shang-class nuclear attack submarines conduct anti-surface and anti-submarine warfare operations across blue water environments. Approximately 13 hulls are operational, divided between first-generation variants with limited capabilities and improved later models with enhanced quieting and weapons systems. The submarines carry YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles and U-6 wire-guided torpedoes. Submerged displacement reaches 7,000 tons with sustained speeds approaching 30 knots. The Type 093 would establish defensive barriers around ballistic missile submarine patrol areas, screen carrier strike groups during transits, and conduct independent hunter-killer operations against opposing submarines. Later variants incorporate improved pump jet propulsion systems, reducing acoustic signatures. though performance still trails Western equivalents. The submarine's nuclear reactor provides unlimited range and high sustained speeds for rapid repositioning. Acoustic disadvantage limits effectiveness against quieter Western attack submarines, particularly when operating in shallow waters where detection ranges collapse. The submarine force remains significantly outnumbered by potential adversaries, preventing comprehensive area denial across multiple theaters simultaneously. Crew training and operational experience lag behind nations with decades of continuous blue water submarine operations. Weapon loads remain limited compared to larger Western designs, reducing engagement capacity during extended patrols. HQ-9 long-range surface-to-air missile batteries protect high-value installations, mobile command posts, and deployed ground forces from air attack. Approximately 300 batteries are deployed, each consisting of multiple transporter erector launcher vehicles, fire control radars, and command modules. The missile engages targets at ranges exceeding 200 kilometers and altitudes up to 30,000 meters. Semi-active and active radar homing variants provide flexibility across engagement geometries. The system would establish overlapping engagement zones around critical infrastructure, including air bases, port facilities, and ballistic missile launcher assembly areas. Mobile deployment allows rapid repositioning to counter evolving air threats and complicate opposing strike planning. Integration with early warning radar networks provides extended engagement timelines against incoming raids. Effectiveness against stealth aircraft remains limited by radar cross-section reduction technologies that shrink detection ranges below optimal engagement distances. The system cannot effectively engage cruise missiles traveling below radar horizons without forward-deployed sensors. Electronic warfare attacks against fire control radars can degrade tracking accuracy, reducing kill probability. Missile magazines limit sustained defense against large raid packages, requiring prioritization decisions that may leave gaps in coverage. Y-20 strategic airlift aircraft provide heavy cargo transport for rapid deployment of ground forces and logistics sustainment across theater distances. Approximately 50 aircraft are operational as of late 2024, with production continuing at measured pace. The aircraft carries 66 tons of cargo or 200 fully equipped troops with maximum range approaching 4,500 kilometers. 4 turbofan engines provide adequate performance for operations from austere airfields with limited ground support. The Y-20 would deploy airborne forces for rapid seizure of key terrain, deliver logistics packages to forward operating bases, and evacuate casualties from contested areas. Medical evacuation configurations support aeromedical transport for stabilized patients, requiring evacuation to rear area hospitals. The aircraft's ability to operate from unprepared surfaces expands deployment options during contingencies. Inventory numbers remain insufficient for brigade-scale airborne operations, limiting rapid deployment to battalion-sized elements. The aircraft lacks defensive countermeasures and armor protection, making it vulnerable to surface-to-air missiles and fighter interception during approach phases. Effective employment requires air superiority over landing zones and suppression of ground-based air defenses. Cargo capacity and range trade-offs force mission planners to choose between payload and operational radius.